whispers of pain, welcomes you. The night they put her things on the sidewalk, it was raining hard enough to erase faces. Boxes sagged in the downpour, books turned to pulp, framed photos slid behind trash bags. A neighbor closed her curtains when she saw the landlord's truck. No one wanted to watch a life get evicted. Lena Reed stood on the curb in a thin hoodie, fingers numb around a crumpled notice. Termination of lease. She had lived in that apartment for 7 years, paid every bill on time, patched cracks in the wall herself, baked cookies for the old lady downstairs. Now she was non-compliant tenant, thrown out for complaining one too many times about mold that crawled up her bedroom wall and the gas leak no one came to fix. You had options, her landlord, Mr. Halloway, had said earlier, not looking her in the eye. You didn't have to make trouble. You called inspectors. You called the city. Actions have consequences. She wanted to scream that she just wanted to breathe without coughing, that she just wanted not to wake up dizzy from the gas smell. Instead, she watched as movers stacked her furniture beside the overflowing dumpster. Her bed looked small out here, stripped of blankets and dignity. By midnight, the street was empty. So was Lena. She tried calling friends. One didn't pick up. One wasn't in town. One offered a couch for a night. Then, we'll see. Her parents were gone. Her sister lived 3 states away with 3 kids and no space. When morning came, the rain stopped. Her things didn't magically go back inside. Mold or no mold, the locks had been changed. She had 2 suitcases, a backpack, and $86 in her bank account. She slept the next night on a metal bench behind the bus station, her head buried in her knees, pretending the sound of idling engines was just loud neighbors. Sometime after 2 a.m., a security guard tapped her shoulder and said, "You can't stay here, miss." Policies. Policies. Consequences. Always those words never help. By the 3rd day, hunger hurt worse than humiliation. She stood outside a coffee shop, watching people in clean clothes tap cards and argue about oat milk. She walked in, not sure why. Maybe for the bathroom. Maybe just for the illusion of being a customer, not debris. "Hey, you okay?" a voice asked. She turned and saw him, dark hair, faded flannel, a laptop, open and forgotten on the table. He looked like every other stranger, until she realized he was looking directly at her, not through her. "I'm fine," she lied. His gaze dropped to the dirt on her jeans, the backpack that had become a part of her spine. "No, you're not," he said gently. "Do you want to sit? I can at least get you something warm." Pride warred with need. Need one? She sat. He ordered coffee and a breakfast sandwich, placed them in front of her without making it a performance. "I'm Mason," he said. "I work. Too much." She laughed once, dry. "I'm Lena. I don't work at all. Not anymore." She told herself she wouldn't tell him everything. Just enough to justify the food. But stories have a way of spilling when someone actually listens. She heard her own voice describe the black mold, the gas smell, the headaches, how the landlord ignored her, how she called the city inspector, how, a month later, a termination notice arrived. Technicalities and fine print, crushing her, like a second roof. "I signed the paper without reading," she confessed. "He said it was just a form acknowledging repairs. Turns out I agreed I'd vacate if required. Then he claimed I was late with rent. I have receipts, but it doesn't matter. Last week he showed up with guys and..." She gestured helplessly toward the street. "Now my bed is landfill." Mason listened, jaw tightening. "What about legal aid?" he asked. Tenant defenders? You have rights. I had a job, she said. Graphic design. The eviction. It was public record. My boss saw the rumors about me trashing the property, said it looked bad for the company. Her eyes dropped to the table. They let me go. Who wants to hire the crazy tenant who sues people? Did you? He asked. Did I what? Did you sue him? She shook her head. With what money? He owns 3 buildings and a beach house. I have $86 and some waterlogged books. Mason was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm not just some guy with a laptop. I'm a law student. Almost done, actually. I interned at a tenants' rights clinic last year. She almost laughed in his face. What, you're going to write a strongly worded email for me? He smiled, but there was steel under it. No, I'm going to make your landlord regret thinking you're disposable. That was the day Mason fell quietly, irreversibly in love with Lena Reed. He didn't say it, not then. He just walked her to a women's shelter he knew, talked to the staff, made sure they had a bed, promised he'd be back the next day with a plan. Lena didn't believe him. People had promised all kinds of things, calls, couches, help with resumes. Promises dissolved faster than the ink on her eviction notice. But the next morning, he was there at 9 a.m. sharp, holding a folder. We start by getting your stuff, he said. What's left of it? They took a ride share to the building. The sidewalk where her life had been dumped was mostly clear now. A few warped photo frames lay near the fence, glass shattered. Her kitchen table was gone. So was her bookshelf. Mason walked up to the front door and rang. When Mr. Halloway opened, eyes narrowing, Mason held up his phone, already recording. Mr. Halloway, my name is Mason Tran, he said, professional and sharp. I'm assisting Ms. Reed regarding her unlawful eviction and breach of the implied warranty of habitability. Unlawful? The landlord scoffed. She signed the agreement. I have every right. You had a legal obligation to maintain safe, habitable conditions, Mason cut in. You ignored reports of mold and a gas leak. Then you retaliated when she called inspectors. That's illegal in this state. Also, you disposed of her property without proper notice. He pulled printed photos from the folder. Pictures Lena had taken of the mold blooming like bruises across her ceiling. Time-stamped videos of the gas stove hissing when off. He had already pulled city code violations online. We'll be filing suit, Mason said, for wrongful eviction, retaliation, and damages. Halloway's face blanched, then hardened. You think some kid lawyer scares me? I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Maybe, Mason said. But judges tend to care about things like poisoning tenants and tossing their belongings onto public sidewalks in the rain. He took Lena's elbow gently. We're done here. For the first time since the eviction, she felt the tiniest spark of something that wasn't despair. Not hope exactly. Just the awareness that someone else was angry on her behalf. The lawsuit took months. Mason officially joined a legal aid organization so he could represent her under a supervising attorney. He spent nights digging through housing codes, finding past complaints against Halloway. There were more than Lena knew. Old ladies who'd moved out quietly, young families who'd just left after similar mysteriously timed repairs. Pattern, Mason murmured, circling cases. Judges love patterns. Lena, meanwhile, tried to rebuild anything of her life that wasn't on paper. She picked up freelance gigs on a borrowed laptop at the shelter, designing flyers and logos for small businesses. She and Mason started meeting after his classes at a park halfway between his apartment and the shelter. At first they talked about the case, then about music, movies, the future they both barely dared to imagine. One evening he found her staring at a park bench, eyes distant. "What?" he asked. "This is where I slept. The second night," she said. "I remember staring at that lamppost and thinking, if I disappear, no one will notice for days." Mason swallowed. "I would have noticed," he said softly. She looked at him then, really looked, and something shifted. In court, Holloway tried to swagger. His attorney called Lena disgruntled and non-compliant, hinted at unpaid rent and difficult behavior. Mason stood before the judge with his stack of evidence and a voice that did not tremble. "Your Honor," he began, "this is not about a difficult tenant. This is about a landlord who decided that profit mattered more than safety, that retaliation was easier than repairs, and that a woman living alone was an acceptable casualty of his business model." He played the inspector's voicemail acknowledging Lena's gas leak report, showed photos of the mold, the doctor's note about her respiratory infections, pulled up the city's own citations against Holloway's properties. He even found a security camera clip from a neighboring store showing Lena's furniture being dragged to the curb during a storm. No marshal present, no proper storage. Ms. Reed lost not just her home, Mason said, but her job, her possessions, and her stability. She spent nights on the street because Mr. Holloway decided that obeying the law was optional. The landlord's attorney objected, argued, tried to paint Lena as irresponsible. But every accusation fell apart under Mason's quiet, relentless documentation. When Lena took the stand, her hands shook. Mason met her eyes and nodded once. She told the judge about nights waking up gasping, the way her lungs burned and her throat tasted metallic, about sending emails that were never answered, about standing in the rain, watching 7 years of her life soak into the concrete. "Did you want to sue him?" the judge asked. "No," she said. "I just wanted not to die in my sleep from mold and gas. And when they put my things on the street, I just wanted not to disappear." The courtroom was silent. In the end, the judge's ruling was firm and furious. She found that Holloway had violated multiple housing codes, illegally retaliated against a tenant for asserting her rights, and conducted an unlawful self-help eviction. The court ordered him to pay substantial damages to Lena for wrongful eviction and loss of property, cover her legal fees, restore her tenancy, or, if she chose not to return, provide equivalent relocation assistance. "And given the pattern in your other buildings," the judge added, "this court will be forwarding its findings to the city attorney for further investigation." Outside the courthouse, the sky was clear for once. Lena stood on the steps, the judgment in her hand, numbers that meant she could finally exhale. "You did it," she said to Mason. "We did it," he corrected. "You kept fighting. You let me help. They're giving me enough to... I could get an apartment that isn't falling apart," she said slowly. "Replace what I lost. Mostly." "You can do more than that," he said. "You can start over somewhere that doesn't smell like mold and regret." She looked at him, this man who'd found her on a day she felt less than human and treated her like someone worth saving. "And you?" she asked. "Where will you be?" He smiled, a little nervous now in a way he never was in court. "If you'll let me with you. I don't just care about your case, Lena. I care about you." The words landed softly, like a door opening. Months later, they moved into a small apartment together. Nothing fancy, but clean, warm, theirs. They built new shelves, bought new mugs, hung up a framed copy of the court's judgment on the wall next to Lena's artwork. Sometimes, when she woke up sweating from old memories of rain and sidewalks, she would feel Mason's arm around her and hear his sleepy mumble, "You're home. No one's putting you out again." She had lost everything once, her home, her job, her sense that the world had a place for her. But she had gained something the landlord never counted on. Someone who saw her as more than an inconvenience. Someone who was willing to take on a system and a man with money and power and say, "You can't do this to her." Together, they didn't just win back what was taken. They built a life no one could throw onto the street,